morning, good evening, good afternoon guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a beautiful day and welcome back to another Mental Health Monday video. And today we're going to talk about perfectionism and the fear of failure. So generally I feel like perfectionism is a very strong trait for those with mental illness and mental health problems, because a lot of the time our anxieties come from the perfectionist idea that we have and we kind of try to follow. So I know personally I have struggled with perfectionism in all aspects of my life, from training to uni to school to work to social situations, and even in my YouTube channel I often sit and edit videos for ages and I'm still not entirely happy that it is perfect, but I have to fight that urge just because I just need to, and we're going to cover that today. So a lot of perfectionism kind of for me comes back to when I was younger, and a lot of the time it was from swimming, and yeah, I don't really want to go into too much detail as to where I know my perfectionism comes from, just because it's not the place. And I also think that I struggled as a child with the expectation that I put on myself in relation to performing in training, performing in exams and stuff like that. And my parents never put any pressure on me as a kid. Never in a million years did they say, oh, I needed to get a certain grade or anything. They would have been perfectly happy if I didn't get, I mean, I wouldn't say perfectly happy, but you know what I mean. They never once expressed any expectation they had on me to achieve a certain thing, and the perfectionism always came from myself. And it also got to the extent that I used to work so hard at the pool that I just physically exhausted myself, to the extent that I actually kept getting ill and things like that. So this is why I kind of thought it was useful to discuss perfectionism on my channel, just because I know that a lot of people do struggle with it. Even people who aren't mentally ill struggle with perfectionism. I think that in today's day and age we compare ourselves to other people a lot, and I think social media is one of the world's worst. Like, some of the posts on social media are not a realistic representation of their life, and let's be real, nobody looks like they do on their Instagram 20 days in a row, because you just don't. And it's all good angles, good lighting, good filters, etc. So a lot of perfectionism kind of comes from like very black and white thinking. So for example, if this isn't perfect, then I'm a failure, or if this isn't perfect, then something disastrous will happen. And I think that the most important thing is for us to kind of be able to recognise that and tackle that ourselves. So I just kind of wanted to give you some tips and advice that have helped me in this area. So my first tip is actually a quote that I found online. I don't know where the quote comes from, but it basically says, there is a crack in everything that we do, and this is how the light gets in. So if you imagine there's a black window, if there is a crack in it, that's the only way light can get in. And I think that this represents kind of the irrational fear of failure that we have, and in the sense that when things go wrong, that is how we grow from them. And I think a lot of the time we kind of forget that, and I think it's really important that rather than it being a negative that there's a crack in something or a less than perfect standard, then I think that it's an incredible way to learn and grow into something which is so much more brighter and more developed, if that makes sense. So obviously, like, none of us are perfect, nobody is perfect, and I think the fact that we compare ourselves to people is utterly ridiculous, because I mean, nobody is perfect, and that's what makes us all so great and special. My second piece of advice is to learn to recognise your perfectionism. So one way that I would recommend doing this is list any perfectionistic thoughts that you may have during your day, so that you're aware of them, And whenever you're evaluating yourself, I think that it is super important to like take a step back and be like, okay, is this a rational way of evaluating it, or am I comparing myself to something which is totally inachievable and unrealistic? My third piece of advice kind of links into tip number 2, and that is to notice any should statements. So that's like, I should be able to make this time, I should be able to beat this person, I should be able to get my essay to be a star, I should be able to have a clean flat all the time, I should be able to, okay, I'm going a bit far now. So this is often kind of where we're like, often when we say should, it kind of emphasizes the fact that we do have a abnormal idea of what we should be achieving, and quite often it is linked to perfectionism. And I think that if we can notice should statements more, then we can become aware of it, because that's the first step in kind of tackling perfectionism, is being aware of it. And if you're not aware of it, then you probably can't actually tackle it. My fourth piece of advice is to practice being less perfect, and this kind of goes alongside stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing things that you're not good at. Because if you can be comfortable being uncomfortable and be comfortable with not being good at something, I think that helps a lot with dealing with perfectionism. And a lot of the time as a kid, I just wouldn't do things that I wasn't good at. So a prime example of that is literally any sport that I didn't do as a kid. So like gymnastics, I never did that because I wasn't good at it. And I think that the way to tackle that is by practicing being less perfect. So I know a lot of the time now, I do challenge myself to do stuff that I'm not necessarily good at. So my next piece of advice is to build up your self-worth and confidence. And I genuinely believe that if you act confident, no one will question you. And if you act confident, a lot of the time you feel more confident than what you actually are. So I feel like confidence is such an amazing skill to learn how to fake, because if you can fake being confident, then you'll feel more confident, which means that you'll probably more than likely be less likely to have perfectionist thinking. If you act confident, then you kind of don't necessarily think about the fact that you might not be doing something entirely 100% perfect, and I think that that's an amazing skill to learn. My next piece of advice for you guys, I can't remember what tip we're on, so links into the self-worth and confidence thing, and that is to write down 10 positive things about yourself, and at the end of each day write down 3 positive things you've done. And I think that this is really important in recognising your own self-worth and kind of tackling that perfectionism, because it's so easy at the end of the day to come home and be like, oh, I didn't do this well enough, I should have done this, I should have done that, and we don't necessarily credit ourselves for the things that we have done. And I think that that's where a lot of mental health issues come from, is the sense that we do struggle to recognise our achievements and recognise the things that we are good at. My last piece of advice is to disregard the connection between a perfect standard and being a good person. So with a lot of the time, I used to kind of associate the fact that if I wasn't doing something perfect, then that would make me a failure as a person or a bad person. And in reality, that's just not the case. I think if I was a bad person, then I would probably be in jail or something, but I'm not. And do you know what? If I don't get an A in a test, then does it really matter? And is it the end of the world? No. And it doesn't make me a bad person if I do something which is less than perfect. And I think it is an amazing opportunity to grow from something. And I think that it's so important to constantly remind ourselves of that. So I hope this video has been helpful for at least somebody. The reason why I do these mental health videos is because I feel like I just want to help one person, and I'm hoping that it has helped one person, so I really hope it has. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to join the family. I do post mental health videos fairly regularly, and especially with the whole crisis of coronavirus, it's ridiculous. I do have more time on my hands to sit down and film, so there will be more regular videos on my channel, so definitely click the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you're notified when I post. And I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Remember guys, stay safe, and you are amazing. Bye!